Alright, and we're back here above Kerbin, safe and sound at a nice circular 71 kilometer orbit. Next thing we have to do is we have to set up a transfer burn to the moon. So I'm going to set the moon as our target, and then I'm basically going to add a maneuver node and try to get an encounter with it. So let's see here. We're gonna burn in the direction of our orbit, which is going to increase our orbital energy so much so that we can actually encounter the moon's sphere of influence. I'm actually going to take a little bit of time and try to get this so that we can minimize the amount of delta V, because again we did use a little bit more than I had originally anticipated just with the getting into orbit. So again, it doesn't hurt. We're not pressed for time really, like we've got plenty of time. It's not like we're gonna fall back into Kerbin. So right now we're at a nice stable point where we can just take our time and hopefully set something up. So yeah, I'm just gonna play around with this for a little bit and see what we can't get. The other thing is we could set it up at a periapsis, which would, by burning at the periapsis, that actually maximizes our apoapsis. As far as like how much delta V translates into how much orbital energy. So burning at the periapsis, even though they're very close to circular orbit, so there's not much of a difference, but there is a slight difference. Since the moon's nowhere near at that encounter point, what we can do is we can actually set the maneuver node a few orbits ahead. So if I just keep pressing forward, that's advancing one revolution. So we're going to have to wait a little bit of time, but eventually we should get a moon encounter. And there it is. The periapsis is very low, but if you look, we're actually on a free return trajectory where it will actually bring us back to the Earth. This green dashed line is the second part of the orbit. So the yellow is our first part. This is our where our target burn would take us. The purple part is the encounter with the moon, and then the green would be our resulting orbit after we leave the moon. So if you see, it's not an actual capture by the moon. We're going to have to do a correction burn to actually burn into and be captured by that orbit. But this is an Apollo-style burn. It is the reason they did a free return trajectory was there was possible at the time that their engines might not fire when they got to the moon, so they would, instead of being stuck orbiting around the moon or being lost in space, they would essentially be sent back to Earth and be on a free return trajectory back to Earth. So that there was some safety in that. The free return trajectory here it's doable. I mean, 850 meters a second. Let's see what happens. Again, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to right click here, warp to next maneuver. That's what we're going to do. And that's going to take a day. So it'll be just a very nice view orbiting Kerbin. Bob gets to contemplate the greater things of the cosmos. Let's check out his view right now. Oh, it's actually quite depressing, but wait, there is a little window, but I guess you can't really see much. So yeah, we're just time warping to the maneuver node, which is a day away, it looks like. By doing it this way, again, we're saving some energy, and hopefully we'll be able to redeem ourselves fuel-wise as far as completing the mission goes. I'm pretty sure we have enough fuel to get to the moon, and I'm just not certain about whether or not this stage is going to have enough to insert ourselves into a stable lunar orbit or not. The problem with that, again, being like we used a lot of fuel in just getting into launch, because I think I had a slightly aggressive vertical launch profile that I probably should have changed it a little bit. But again, in the spirit of KSP, we're just going to go with it. We're just going to ride it out. We're just going to see what happens. Unfortunately, since I am in a low Kerbin orbit, time acceleration is limited to only ×4. And it says my node is a day away. Thankfully, a Kerbal day is only 6 hours, so we're only we're not that far away. Bob's still happy. I guess his suit has a bathroom in it, and the Kerbals don't eat much. At least I've never seen them eat much, although they usually have a bunch of snacks in their spaceship somewhere. Those canisters there, they have the snacks. Yes. So the moon is where it should be, I suppose. I guess this maneuver node is set up properly. I hope so, anyway. Otherwise, this would be a tremendous waste of time for both of us, but we'll see what happens. The other thing to consider, at least as far as like backup propulsion goes, there's these little RCS thrusters. They're great for doing orbital corrections, and they're almost essential for any kind of docking mission or any mission that involves docking to craft, but they do provide enough thrust to move a craft, and a substantial amount of thrust. So if worst case scenario, we may use the RCS to supplement some of our Delta V in future burns. They would be most beneficial used like after this stage is jettisoned, simply because, you know, the less mass, the better thrust to weight ratio we'll have. So we'll have a better translation into actual Delta V, and acceleration. It just contributes to better overall performance of the craft. Oh geez, I did not anticipate the time acceleration would take this long. So I might actually just cut the video here and just resume it, so I will see you on the other side. Alright, and we're back, and the time warp has completed. Spirits are high as we prepare for our transfer burn to the moon. It's dark on the dark side, of course, so I'll turn the lights on so at least you can get a little bit more than just a black screen. Okay, so we're 40 seconds out. I think the burn's going to take over a minute and a half, so I'm just going to start it right now. So we're lined up and engines are engaged. Okay, yeah, so it says it's about a minute burn, so this is actually perfect. Whenever you have a burn that's, you know, longer than like 10 seconds, you always want to start it about halfway before your node. So starting it at 30 seconds before, it'll burn until 30 seconds after, meaning the average velocity was applied at the node. So this is ideal. So we've got 500 Delta V to go. We're still keeping our eye very closely on that fuel tank, hoping that it's somehow enough to get us to the moon and captured into the lunar orbit. Right, so we're about halfway through with our burn. We've passed the node. There's the moon in the distance. We see it. Bob keeps his eye on the prize. Unfortunately, this is all Bob sees right now. He's hard at work. Okay, we're just getting ready to cut thrusters. Alright, hold on. 3, 2, 1. Burns complete. Alright, I'm just going to add a little bit more correction. Okay, let's see where we're at here. So we do have an encounter. Our periapsis is 1,400 kilometers. I'm going to engage the RCS and just try to bring that in a little bit. Let's see here. Notice how just a little bit of RCS actually could change the orbital periapsis by over, in some instances, 100 kilometers. So it's right in here is one of those points where if a little bit of change in Delta V can equate to quite a bit when you actually get to the orbital encounter of a body. So I want to get that even lower. We're going to come in really close. Of course, this is destroying my free return trajectory, but at this point in Kerbal Space Program, the Kerbals can survive as long as we don't expose them to too much heat or too much pressure or too much change in Delta V, at least when there's hard surfaces in front. So, again, periapsis coming down even more, even more, even more. I actually want that... I will keep it at that, around 300. We can create we'll make a correction when we encounter it here, which leads me to the next time acceleration. Thankfully, once we get out of the low Kerbal atmosphere, the time acceleration is much faster. So, as you see, we are on our way and leaving Kerbin and approaching new territories. Okay. So yeah, we don't have as much Delta V as I thought. At least we don't have as much fuel as I thought. We might have enough Delta V. I didn't work this out hard. This is more based on like intuition and experience for what I think is reasonable to get to the moon without being too excessive. We'll see how well that works out. Okay, so here we are. We have entered the sphere of influence of the moon. I'm going to add a maneuver node now, which is basically going to bring us into a capture orbit around the moon. Now, the other thing to consider is the moon's rotation, which I believe our orbit that we're coming off of is anti-clockwise, which means we'd be in reverse orbit relative to the surface of the moon. What that would mean is that's an extra delta V to correct for horizontally the rotation of the moon versus how we're going to land on it. Again, I think the moon's rotation rate is relatively small because they do have it tidally locked to Kerbin, just like the Earth-Moon system is. So it's not going to make a big deal. At this point, I'm just happy that we got to the moon, and I think we'll have enough delta V to capture ourselves in orbit. So I want to bring the periapsis into something more reasonable. 37's even high. Like, we don't have to worry about an atmosphere on the moon. I think the highest mountain range is around 10 kilometers, so being at 30 is more than enough. But yeah, let's just see. What delta V is that? Okay, so that's around 280 delta V. A 17-second burn. I think we'll have enough to do that. Let's see. So I'm going to warp us to the next maneuver node, and then we will go from there. Okay, so now we're just going to line up the craft. I'm going to turn RCS off and just go with the momentum. Since there's no air resistance, I only need the RCS to stop my rotation. This is just planning ahead and trying to conserve as much RCS as possible in case we need it to get back. So now the RCS is back, and I'm just using that to stop my rotation and put me on that blue maneuver node. Okay. So with that being said, let's see. Bob looks happy. He looks like he's ready to go. He's ready to get out of this can. I guess the mission's been going on for 2 days now, so there's probably some cabin fever going on, and he's really ready to land this thing. Alright, we are almost to the midway point. We're going to engage the burner thrusters at 8 seconds. That's the halfway point for the estimated burn time. Here we go. And let's see, we're keeping our eye on liquid fuel. Looks like we're going to have enough to get the capture burn. That will be okay, that's good. Alright. Okay, so let's see. I think, alright, we are in a captured orbit. It's a eccentric orbit right now, so we're going to add another maneuver node at the periapsis, which is going to bring this down. And yeah, actually I would prefer the periapsis be on the dark side because we are going to plan a light side landing. I think it would be beneficial for everyone, all parties involved, if we landed on the visual side of the moon. Not that Bob isn't cleared for night landings, his vision is okay, and there are lights on the craft, but I think it would just be a better for everybody if we just planned a light side landing. So by doing that, having the periapsis near the dark side, this will be helpful. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to even dial it back a little further. I want to get the periapsis around, yeah, 11's fine. That's good. Then we'll warp to this maneuver node. Okay, it's 106 delta V. The amount of fuel we have left will probably not be enough to complete this maneuver, but we still have fuel in the actual lander. I didn't intend for the lander to do any kind of circular orbital corrections. In fact, I kind of intended this stage to actually bring us into a very low circular lunar orbit and also provide the initial deorbit burn. But it's going to be close. We'll see. Again, Kerbal Space Program is an embodiment of the scientific method, and just translated into a lot of fun, because the failures and the mishaps are what really make it interesting and exciting sometimes, and Bob agrees. He seems very happy about this. So, alright, as we approach our node, I'm going to engage the thrusters a little bit early, like at 5 seconds, just because I think they're going to cut out. And they do. We're going to separate this stage. It served us well, but now we're going to activate the landing engine and burn the remaining 40 meters a second. Okay, and I'm turning RCS off again, just because we're going to need to save that for later. Well, this maneuver node is locked. We'll see what that means. I don't know why I can't delete that. But okay, like our periapsis is 11,000 and our apoapsis is 33. We're going to have to add another correction burn. But yes, we are in a stable lunar orbit, and it's, again, semicircular. It's still elliptical. We're going to have to bring the apoapsis down a little bit. And then, so we have one burn to correct this orbit, and then we're going to have to do an insertion burn, which is going to deorbit our vessel. And we're going to plan it in such a way that we can hopefully land in this crater. This crater looks interesting. I want to explore that. So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that, and then we'll pick it up from there. Okay.